Hello and welcome once again to Grange TV. This is episode 3 with Cody Walker, South Sydney 5'8", and Dave Roberts, TAFE extraordinaire, and myself, Fabricio Adair. Cody, welcome.
Thanks very much for having me, Fab.
How you been? How's everything's been? How's the season going? How's the pre-season going?
Yeah, it's obviously been very hard, but most enjoyable. Started back in first week of November. Sort of back a bit now from the fitness side of things and getting into a bit of games, so it's exciting times at the club.
All right, just before we start, Dave, I just want to issue an apology, a public apology to Cody, Mr. Cody Walker, because apparently when we go to Redfern, if we go to Redfern during times when he's playing, we have to text him and tell him that we're in the area, and he feels very, very upset that we didn't do that. And I'd like to apologise to you, Cody.
I apologise, Cody.
Yeah,
thanks.
We both. Yeah, he was adamant about it.
Just a little text or something, like he came over, said hello.
Yeah.
And,
he's probably Cody's probably one of the worst egos in Australian sport that we've come across. I've met a lot of people that, that just have bad egos, but I haven't really had anyone that says that if I go into a particular suburb, I have to text ahead. So
I just thought, we're at a stage now in our friendship, we're pretty good mates, just a text, you across the road, if I'm ever in Campbelltown, I'll always give you a text and come up and say hello and be around the TAFE, so.
He was training while we were there. He was training the whole time, but we still had to look. Let's leave it at that. Yeah. Just apologise.
He didn't have his phone on him.
He didn't have his phone. He trained the whole time we were there. But so I think one thing that a lot of the viewers probably didn't know is how possessive and insecure Cody is. So now we know. So awesome. On that. On your insecurity. Now, so what's happening now with training? Where will you be playing? Will you be playing 5'8"?
Yeah, at this stage I'll be playing 5'8". That's who I'm most comfortable with. But if Steve's ever has a conversation with me and asks me whether he'd want me to go back to fullback or centre or hooker or wherever the team needs me, I'm happy to put my hand up and do a job for the team.
On that, I don't know, because you've dealt with Cody a little bit already. All jokes aside, again, he's sort of similar to Rob in he can't fight, but similar. He's similar to Rob, except he's a lot smaller and can't fight. But I forget as well, because I talk to Cody and I deal with Cody a fair bit, and I forget until now he was talking to students in the GAP program and just students that weren't in the GAP program, just here at TAFE, and first how recognised he is, and it's a kind of an ongoing thing that I say to him stuff, but no, he's actually very recognised, and in particular in Aboriginal community. And just the impact of having you here at TAFE is, to me, I can see it in the students. Again, I forget with both you and Rob and other guys that we work with, how much of an impact that has on community and just people in general. So thank you very much for your time. I really do appreciate you, not just being here for the podcast, but in your talking with the students and whatnot. So that's awesome.
I think a lot of that comes back to I've probably been in their shoes. Before I played NRL, I started playing NRL when I was 26. So throughout that year, I've actually been in them shoes and seeing idols and stuff like that, and knowing what it takes to be a good person and actually have a talk to these people and what sort of impact it actually has on certain people. So I can understand where they're coming from. So it doesn't hurt to be a good person.
How can you talk a little bit about the impact on? Because it might be hard. Maybe you're not even aware. I don't know how much of an impact is not just Cody or a Cody Walker or somebody else in particular in Aboriginal community.
Oh, a massive. You've probably seen it firsthand. We've gone out, up home a few times, and even just when you're here and we done some traditional fire starting with you, which was hilarious with Rob and remember it's actually. Cody just kept jumping on the end of you guys making the fire.
Yeah, he actually didn't make the fire.
No, he didn't make the fire.
No.
But just that, and then like, it's sometimes when you see people on a TV, they're not real, hey?
Yeah.
They're not real. And then you come here and you're a normal person and you have all these sort of goals and ambitions, and you're talking to someone who's studying at a Cert 3 for the first time, and you're a role model.
Yeah.
Instantly like that, just because of that TV persona. And then you come over, you talk, be a nice guy. It changes people's lives.
Yeah.
And, I think, what's the statistics of someone being a first grade player?
Man, do you know the statistics?
I actually heard the other day that on average, the average player retires at the age of 26.
Yep.
And I debuted at 26, you know what I mean? So
it's amazing.
I heard it the other day at the Indigenous Players Camp. They had a person talking, and they said, the average player will play until they're 26 and retire. So I was sort of taken back because I debuted at that age. So it's pretty old to debut at that age in the NRL.
I think it's something like one in every. And I remember, 'cause I had all the stats. If I knew you were going to ask that, I would have had
I was testing you. This is your area.
No, but the stats are something like 1 in 20 kids that play SG ball will make NRL. And out of the people that play NRL, it's something like the average lifespan is like 46 games.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? When there's 26 games in a season.
Yeah. And then
those numbers could be wrong, or they could be dated.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's not a whole lot more when you think about. There's kids that have come through that might have debuted at 19.
Yeah.
Played 2 games, got injured, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You never even hear of them again.
Yeah. But then you calculate that by 2-3% of the population's Aboriginal.
Yeah.
That statistic's just gone even smaller.
Oh, it's tiny.
It's tiny, and then you're debuting at ridiculous age where they're saying you should be retiring.
Yeah.
Like, that's why people are drawn to you naturally. Yeah. Like, you're just an inspiration.
Yeah.
So when you're talking to kids and hearing that stuff, it just naturally comes across. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's the impact on community.
Yeah, and I think, like, I don't know if it was you I was talking to, or it might have been somebody else like today or maybe yesterday. I don't know. I don't want to say, like, I don't want to be, because I'm not trying to make it, but it's almost like with the Aboriginal community, the impact being that it's 3%, it's almost like a nation within a nation if you're from those small country towns, and not even being Aboriginal. I'd imagine that even if you weren't Aboriginal and you played first grade and you're from Ballina or something, there can't be that many people playing, you know what I mean? Even if you say no, but it's a hotbed, the Northern Rivers are a hotbed of rugby league, but it'd still be a small amount of people that comes from like that particular town.
Well, I think in town where I grew up, I think
which is where?
Casino.
Yep.
Matty King played for Australia, played New South Wales. Ben Kennedy, Albert Torrens comes from the same community from out Jubal, Tabalum. So there's only a very small percent of people who come from Casino that actually went on to play NRL. So
and that are currently playing.
Oh, I think I'm the only one from Casino that's currently playing.
Wow.
So when you go, well, because we were out there, we were out at Tabalum with Cody, and his family took us out there. And like from what you were saying to me, they still talk about me, and they all they're all because not being Aboriginal and just having that connection with the land that I had
with the turtle,
50, 60 turtles I caught that day. So like being out there and you being the only one that's playing, I think the impact is massive because we spent that time out in Tabalum and Casino and all through the Northern Rivers. Yeah. So that, I don't know, that to me is like seeing the impact that you have is pretty big.
But I think in saying that, there was, myself growing up in that country town, there was a lot of very, very talented footballers, exactly the same as me, that could have went on to bigger and better things. So I really want to help kids that that want to play NRL or want to get out of Casino or want to do things with their life, actually try and make that transition a little bit easier.
How hard is that transition?
Oh, mate, I moved out of home when I was 17. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. Like never been away from my mum and dad. The there was a thing there where Mum and Dad wanted me to go away to boarding school at year 7 because my older brothers went to St Greg's just here in Campbelltown. And I said, nah.
Are you the baby?
Yeah. And I said, nah, no way. I didn't want to live away from my mum and dad. And they said, no, we're not going to force you to do anything, you know, you don't want to do. So at 17, I found it very hard to move to Gold Coast, and I was only 2 hours away, you know what I mean? So it was definitely hard.
So when you moved, can you tell us a little bit about what precipitated the move? Where did you move to? Why, etc.?
The move was I was signed by the Gold Coast Titans at 16 on a scholarship there, and my dad sort of thought it was a good idea just to get out of casino because of the troubles and stuff that were going on, and I thought it was a real good idea to just get out and get an opportunity, get a better education and stuff like that. So I remember moving away, packing away, and moving in with a family I just met that day, like rocking up to their house. Never met them before, never seen them before. Just walking in and just saying hello and saying, "This is your bed," you know, like it was just. It was. But look, the family were a beautiful family. The eldest was, I think it was a family of 4, 2 older brothers, a sister, and three brothers, a sister, and a little brother, and they were great. They were a great family, but you know, being from a small country town at 17. Rocking up and just sort of walking in and having to live there was definitely hard.
How I look at this a lot. First of all, I just want to touch back on something you said. When you said your father wanted you to move away from the troubles that were occurring in casino, what were the troubles that were occurring in casino at the time?
I think it's alcohol. You know, I was being out late at night and stuff like that, and just being a little rat bag, you know what I mean, and hanging around the wrong crowd, whether it was the wrong crowd or not, but...
You probably were the crowd.
Yeah, exactly. But, he just wanted me to get away and not sort of waste my opportunity being a footballer because, you know, I definitely had the talent as a young kid. He just didn't want to let me waste that.
So your dad was... I mean, he sounds like a pretty clued-on dude because, like, not only can he recognise the talent, because a lot of people can't, and a lot of people can't draw the line between... recognising the talent and seeing that you could actually do something with that talent, and also understanding that there was things that were influencing you, could have influenced you in a negative format. Tell us a little bit about your dad.
Yeah, he's a proud Bunjalung man. Grew up in casino, moved away to Sydney for a couple of years, for a fair while, and then we sort of moved around a fair bit and moved back to casino. He's a what's that thing called? He works in the jail out there at Tablon. So he's one of the screws out there. So he's very influential man to myself and my 3 older brothers.
Speaking on that, you moved. Do you want to speak on anything at all that you think? Do you want to say anything?
No, just working in corrections, especially an Aboriginal person, like that's full on. We run a lot of programs for corrective services and just trying to get Aboriginal people in the role with all the family issues and all the other stuff. Like, so he must have been a massive influence just for work ethic. Like, where does work ethic come from? Was it from him?
Yeah, from both my mum and dad. They've worked all our life. Yep. So
your mum's a nurse?
No, she's a carer at the moment for my nan.
Right.
My nan is a full-time carer, so she's living in now at the moment. She's been doing that for about 2 or 3 years now. So,
what's your mum do? What did she do?
She was the head of land council at the Belengul in Casino.
Wow.
And my dad was the CEO there for a little bit, and before he got the job in Belunda. So their work ethic is massive in our family, and
in the community. They're a massive community role.
Yeah.
And you'd have to be, from what you're saying, you'd have to be quite a strong character to carry those roles, and especially in those areas. Do you want to speak on that at all, Dave?
I think the first time I've heard about that, and I didn't know that about you, so I'm just sort of like in amaze that pretty much, firstly, to go from managing a CEO, that would have gave a lot of training for him to go in corrections, because it's hard to negotiate those community protocols and be all that sort of stuff. And then in terms of you, how does that roll off in you as an Aboriginal leader?
I get a lot from leading by example.
Yep.
My dad works in docks. My dad worked in juvenile justice, so he works with a lot of Aboriginal communities. So he's a role model in itself, if you know what I mean. So
just sort of on you moving out to Queensland at 16, 17 years old. Obviously, going back to your parents, okay, they recognised that you had talent, they recognised that you could do this, etc. As a young player, like I look at Isaiah that works here, whatnot, he's similar situation, but he happened in reverse. So he went from Mackay here to South Sydney. How that window of opportunity from SG Ball, making the jump from SG Ball, for those that don't know, is like under 18s or equivalent. The under 18s to making first grade at 21, say, because generally not a lot of people debut later, which we'll get to in a sec. But how quick does that window close if you're not doing the right things?
Well, it's probably a bit different for me. So I started at age 17 at Palm Beach Currumbin, and I probably didn't have the right work ethic, the right mindset to be a first grade footballer. And
most people don't at 16, do they?
Well, I probably didn't know that until I was probably 23, 24. So a lot of times that window closes, but I'm pretty lucky with me, it didn't close. So I lived up in Gold Coast till I was 20, just at the back end of my 20s. And then moved to Sydney with my brother at 21, and he was with Penrith Panthers. So I probably didn't realise that. I needed to work hard, I needed a diet, everything that it takes to be an NRL footballer. I probably didn't realise that until I moved in with my brother, how much that actually means and what it takes to be a footballer. Because I didn't have much of a diet, I didn't have, out in the piss every weekend, being a little rat bag, and I didn't have discipline. Whereas now I'm pretty disciplined in what I put in my body, what I do on the weekends and stuff like that. So it took me a fair while to understand that, and for a lot of people that window closes very, very quickly. So I'm quite fortunate.
I see with I see this with a lot of athletes that debut later, or they don't necessarily enjoy the success of a youth prodigy, so to speak. But I see that them being able to transition into life after football probably easier, and I see that they're able to. I don't know what the studies or the figures are on that. This is just what I've noticed, and that when the success does come, they are able to deal with it a little bit better than. I mean, if you're a young guy and you get signed to a multi-million-dollar deal at 18, 19 years old, you more or less won the lotto. I mean, you won the genetic lotto and you won the financial lotto. So what are the pros and cons to you having debuted later at 26, 27? 26, right?
Yeah, 26. I reckon, so from 22, I had to work. So I was playing reserve grade with East Tigers in Brisbane. Just had my first son. I had to work 5 days a week, train 3 or 4 times a weekend.
What work were you doing?
Just in the warehouse at a Suzuki factory. So I was working from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock every day. On Tuesday nights, training straight from work. I didn't have a licence, so my days were massive, you know what I mean? Like from Monday to Friday, I was just full on. So I've done that for 2 years. And I finally got what I set out to do, all those years ago, was to get an NRL contract, and no one was taking that away from me, ever. I just thought, working so hard to get somewhere, and the amount of work I did do, I really relished that opportunity. When I did get signed at the end of 2013, I signed my first NRL contract. So,
who was that with?
Melbourne Storm.
Right. Did you play NRL for them?
No. I remember getting picked in round, I think it might have been round 10 against the Sea Eagles. They put out the team, and back then you didn't have to name 21 or something like it is now, and you could actually name the 17 or 18, and then later on in the week just put a debutant in, whereas now you can't do that. So they named the team, and then about 9:30, I remember clear as day, about 9:30, 10 o'clock, Tuesday night, the assistant coach rings me and goes, "Oh yeah, you're going to debut against the Seagulls this weekend." And I was pumped. I was that excited. Rang all my family.
How old were you?
26.
This is 26.
No, 24.
24, right.
2014. Yeah. And I rang all my family, my partner, my brothers, everything like that. Rang them that night. And then the very next day I went into training. And we were training, and probably the last 10 minutes of the session I'd done my hemi. So it absolutely shattered me. And I remember, because when you do a hemi, you don't walk. So the trainer came over to me and sort of helped me downstairs, and I was walking.
Was it grade 3? What?
No, it was just, that's what I'm saying, I was actually walking.
Ah, okay.
So the trainer said, "Oh, look, it might not be too bad, you know what I mean? Like, might be all right because you're actually walking on it, you know. And like most people have to get carried off when they do a hemi." So I was laying on the bed, and the physio comes in, and I had like ice on my hamstring, and laying there, and he was poking around and stuff like that, and it was hurting. And then he said, "Oh mate, you can't play this weekend," and I was just like, it just sort of sank, you know what I mean? I was just like, fuck. And then as the boys were finishing, they had to walk past me to go into the dressing sheds, and they obviously knew that I'd done my hemi and I couldn't debut that weekend, so they were, consoling me and just reassuring me that everything's going to be all right, and good luck with everything and stuff like that. That wasn't probably the hardest thing to deal with. It was probably the phone calls that came after it. Like I was planning on after training that day to book all my parents' flights, my partner's flights, my brother's flights, and all that sort of stuff. So the phone calls I had to make to ring my mum and dad, to ring my brothers, to ring my my partner and stuff like that was a very, very hard phone call to make. Nearly brought me to tears, like I was sort of choking back, when you get that little lump in your throat. It was, it was pretty tough to take.
Do you think it gives you... Do you see young guys coming through and they don't have to go through that? And do you think you have... I think you do. I think that goes without saying. Like, do you have a greater appreciation for...
Yeah.
Do you think that it's hard that a lot of these guys probably don't get that? I don't know. To me, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I guess I'll just say what I'm trying to say. I see a lot of times with guys, and when I have these conversations with some guys that we train, and I think like, dude, you get to train, whatever, let's call it football or whatever sport, but you get to train and compete. Like, I know it's hard, and I know not every day is going to be good, but really it's a privilege.
Yeah. It's
not like...
There's an old saying, when people say, you do something you love, you never work a day in your life. I'm actually doing something that I love, so I don't class it as work. I've been through that where I've worked full time and trained on top of that, and I never ever want to go back to that because I wasn't doing what I loved. You know what I mean? Like, it's really puts things into perspective about really relishing your opportunity, what you do have in front of you. So yeah, I think it's put me in good stead.
Do you find it? Did you find that hard in as far as is it hard to relate to people that don't understand that? Like, do you, like young guys, do you find that conversation hard, or do you ever have those conversations where people have never really had to work and they're on decent money?
No, I've never really had a problem with it. Never.
What position are you going to be playing? 5'8"?
5'8".
Is that that for people that don't know, it's a pivotal role in the team?
So that's what we call a playmaker's role. We're sort of, myself and Adam Reynolds plays halfback. We're sort of the generals in the team, and the number 9 the hooker.
Who's the hooker?
Whether it be Damien Cook or Robbie Farah, they're both sort of fighting it out for the in the pre-season. So those 3 positions and the fullback are pretty pivotal in.
Who'll play fullback?
It's either Greg Inglis or Alex Johnson.
Okay,
so they're pretty.
Yeah, now just that list. Then you're saying you're a general and have to tell these people around the field. Like, you're talking, Farah, who's state of origin, Cook, who's going to be, and Greg's an icon, and Alex is his protege. Like, how do you get that motivation? Like, one, I'm interested, that initial motivation around staying on track and to that goal, I'm going to be an NRL star, then having the confidence to tell some of the best players in the comp what to do.
Oh, it's definitely hard, like telling Sammy Burgess to you know where to go on the field, and Sutto, and these legends of the game. Like, Sutto's been at our club. Forever. He's played the most games at our club, and our club's been around since 1908. Like, that's amazing. Like, he's played the most first grade games. Like, and he helps me out with my combination. Like, he's my sort of leader that I turn to, and bounce ideas off, and he bounced ideas off me. So, look, I did find it hard to begin with, but every game you sort of get more confident, and by the end they're actually looking to you to where to go. You know what I mean? They're asking you, where are we going? So it's something that you have to do. Like, if you don't do it, we're not going to get anywhere on the field.
So who would you say are the and I'm not. I'm just asking because for my own sake. Tactically, strategically, would you say that the fullback, 5'8", halfback, hooker, they are pivotal in
where we get on the field? It's the two halves. So myself and Reno. If we let's say we get a penalty or whatever, me and Reno will come together, find out where we're going, get to this point for this play, and sort of tell everyone where they need to go. That's our role, and to get us, out of yardage, what sort of set, because we've got sets and stuff that we train for, and what's it called, like what sort of plays you want to do. Like, they're actually put into sets, so we'll sort of call those out, and the team will listen.
So who else are leaders in that team? Who do the guys turn to automatically? Is it just those pivotal positions? I ask this. Is it the pivotal positions that are the leaders, or do you have guys that are outside of those pivotal positions that are leaders that are just leaders because of how they are?
So in terms of where we get on the field, myself and Reno are the leaders. But in terms of, if we give back-to-back penalties or we're under the pump and stuff like that, how we get out of that is we listen to our leaders in Sam Burgess, John Sutton, and Greg Inglis. They're our three leaders at South. So,
what makes them leaders? Because they're not in pivotal. It's not that they're not in important positions, but they're obviously not in the pivotal positions.
Oh, just the experiences they have. Sam Burgess is an inspiration. Greg Inglis is an inspiration. John Sutton's an inspiration, and what they've been through to get to where they are. They've played a lot of football and a lot of big games. So that experience is pretty vital.
In what ways are they inspirations to you as a player? Because you're a pretty big name in football. What makes you? Look, I have my own opinion, obviously, but I'm saying for you to turn around and go, like, these dudes are inspirational. That's a pretty big word. So what?
Oh, just what they do on the footy field. Like Sammy Burgess, the amount of work he gets through in a game of football is amazing. I think you're a footy fan. Like,
I'm a South fan.
Yeah, you're a South fan. So Greg Inglis just does incredible things. Like, it's ridiculous what he can do on the footy field, and Sutto's the same. Like, they're just people I've watched before I've played in NRL, and you actually look up to them. And now I'm playing in the same side as them. You kind of got to pinch yourself, and it's amazing.
You said something to me earlier when we were eating up in between one of your self-serving rants. you said something to me about what makes you said something to me about there was one particular thing that you noticed with those great players, those leader players, and other players that are not necessarily at that level, and it was something to do when somebody the opposition got free.
So when you're in a scenario, let's say we're defending our line or something, or we're defending and someone makes a break, the leaders don't think, they just move. So some people might just, sort of jog, but the really inspirational players, they'll just sprint straight away. They might not catch that person. They might not be there. They might not get to him, but their first movement is to just go, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
No, because I think it's interesting. One of the things that when you're using that information, you can cross over. I see that, when Rob was talking the other day when we had him on the podcast, and he was talking about as a fighter with him and Romero and a few others that he named that he could really name. In Jacare, when they're placed under a certain kind of pressure, there's no they might get finished, they might get stopped, they might get beat, but there's no thing in them where they're gonna quit. There's none. That doesn't exist. And they don't. And then you can sort of see it sometimes with people where they're not going to quit, but they made a conscious decision that, hey, I'm not going to quit. Yeah. But with them, there's that little thing where it's like what you said. If somebody made a break, they're already chasing you. Yeah. You didn't make a break and they saw you and go, I'm going to chase you. Yeah. You made a break and they chase you.
That's just you know what I mean? It's just a reaction, how quick that reaction is. And people in the stands they will never ever notice that. But people on our field, people in our team, will always notice that sort of things. The things you'll do for your team is amazing, and those sort of players always do that.
I think you see that in the workplace as well. People, they have to make a decision, whether it's corporate, whether it's run your own business. The people that are leaders, that they'll make the decisions that have to be made, and they'll work through until a certain time, until the work's done, and then there's other people that will work if they have to. You know what I mean? And you see that. So, sort of to segue into that, what are some of the qualities that you believe make a leader? I suppose.
Hard work. You got to have, obviously, hard work's up there with number one. In my game, it's what's the other one? Leading by example, and the other one's just whatever you can do for your team. Put your team first, and those little effort areas. Like I said, people in the stand don't notice that, but our team, our club, everyone in our club notices those sort of things. For example, we might be defending and one of our front rowers will put an inside pressure on. It's called inside pressure, where they go up, make them play a little bit earlier. It just helps out edge defenders where they play a little bit earlier. It's easier to defend. So that's doing something for you, mate. You know what I mean? That's helping out my edge, or the right edge or something. So yeah.
And people, there's no way of anyone knowing that, outside of rugby league.
You won't. People won't notice that. Even on the field, I don't think. You're watching it on TV, some people might not notice that, but when it happens, we know about it. You know what I mean?
For me personally, even just in some of the stuff that you said, I think when you're talking about from a leadership perspective, and I think you kind of said it, but I don't know. To me, I think one of the big things is about being a leader is understanding if you have to lead, you lead. But it's also knowing when, three things I think you said. One thing is when you have to lead, you lead. When you have to follow another person, knowing that you're not going to lead and you have to follow them. And then understanding that your position doesn't bestow upon you the leadership. So, and I think you said, all those three things in different ways. I'm not trying to paraphrase you, but I don't know. I find that an extremely intelligent thing, very, very insightful, because I don't think a lot of people fully understand that. I think a lot of people marry their leadership to their position, and they have a real hard time being able to follow other people because they don't want to relinquish that leadership role or that leadership position. And you see that in, I don't know, we work for a big organisation, so you see a lot of people that are in a certain position and they don't even want to hire good people because they're going to feel
threatened,
intimidated. Yeah.
Anything on that, Dave?
Just around leadership, like again, you're potentially leading leaders.
Yeah.
What would on the field? There has to be a part where you don't think about that. Hey, it's just natural instincts.
Yeah.
Where do you think that came from? Like, where does skill and all that stuff? Like, what is it? Just hard work, constantly going through the drills.
I just think through our training, we do a lot of scenario-based training. So, if I need someone to get to where they need to get to, I've actually got to tell them if they, if we're not getting to the right spots on the field, we lose our set, if you know what I mean. So, I just think it comes with experience. I'm a little bit older than a lot of halves in the game, and I've been at the club now for about 3 or 4 years, so I'm pretty comfortable with where I'm at.
Yeah. So looking at that, that's pretty high level strategic thinking. You've got 6 plays. You've got to direct a whole bunch of guys in the right way to get the advantage, right? So have you ever thought of around that as a strategic plan? Is that something that goes through your head? I've got this, I've got to move here. And how does the coaching staff get you mentally prepared to remember all that? That sounds like a lot of shit to remember for me, that's all.
I think we go into a game and we do all our planning through the week, so we do enough training to know what we need to do on the footy field on the weekend. And it could be different to a different team that we're playing. Like, they might defend a little bit different. They might have what's it called? Their edges, like their centres and wingers, might defend a little bit different. So we might have a different play we want to concentrate on that for that particular week. So we do a lot of hours on the footy field and through our training and that through the week to prepare us for the game on the weekend.
But I think that's like really higher order kind of thinking as well, like the strategy that's involved. And I think, like I said earlier, like just that, because you also in that strategy and that tactics, you're also understanding this is my time to be a leader, and I have to make the critical decision that people might not like or might like. But then it's also going, I want to make the decision, or I think that I want to make the decision, but I've got to listen. This guy's just come up with something better than me, or just being able to recognise when to lead, when to follow, who to follow. I think those things they're pretty higher order stuff. Like, it's not just whatever it is. I don't know. It's outside of my realm.
I'm pretty lucky. I've got a very experienced halfback beside me, so I think we sort of work together in our role. Like, he's a very good kicker of the football. He's a very good general in the way we get around the field. So I just sort of listen to him, play off the back of what he does, and if I need to lead in some sort of way, we'll get together at some stage throughout that set or whatever, and I'll say I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that.
So with that, how much time do you spend in knowing the other players' strengths? Like, Reynolds has a great kicking game. Like, Sam does a lot of, on how much of their sort of skills you take in board. So, I know Greg's outside of me, he's going to barge through, I'm going to give it to him this play. Does that knowing your players and your team help with that strategy? Yeah,
100%. Sammy's got a great offload, so I'll follow him whenever he's going into the line to get that offload, because I think I'm most dangerous when I'm around the footy and when there's a staggered line or something like that. So I know he's got a great offload. Sutto's got a great offload as well. Greggy's just powerful. You give him the ball, he's got the palm and that, so he can get you a quick play of the ball, and then we can play off the back of that. Build a momentum and stuff. So
one of the things you said to me earlier as well was how much you genuinely love to play. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I've been, ever since I was 4 or 5 years old, I've just wanted to play rugby league. I remember I was 5 in Maclean. I was living in Maclean at the time, and that was when you didn't have footy boots. I still remember, getting up in winter, going down to the park and running around with no footy boots. It was ridiculous. Like, your feet were that cold, and I remember just having an aspiration to play NRL, and I'd always, that's all I wanted to do was play in the NRL, and to be doing that now is just like I said before. Like, I don't see it as a job. like, I just love the game. It, you know, to get me on the field, I just forget about everything else that's going on around me.
You still feel like that?
Yeah.
How many people would you say realistically that's still playing first grade actually feel like that? And how many people it's a job, it's a grind? Or how many people, and we asked Rob this as well about fighting, how many people are just like, you know what, I'm fast, I'm big, I'm strong, I can catch a football, I've got good motor skills, this is way better than changing tyres?
Yeah, I think I've been pretty lucky. I've worked with a lot of people that really do love rugby league, and there's not too many people that actually class it as a job. So I've been very, very fortunate in the teams I've been at that, you know, they genuinely love playing rugby league on the weekend.
Oh, that's awesome. Your brother, is it Ryan?
Ryan.
He's the football player still?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about him, because obviously he's had a big influence on you?
Yeah, he's 4 years older than me. I've got 3 older brothers on the baby. I moved away with him at 21. He was living in Parramatta at the time and with Penrith Panthers. And he's the type of person that's very, very planned out in what he does, and very, very structured. You know, like, I remember getting down there, and as I said before, I didn't have a diet, didn't know what good food was, didn't know, you know, when I was supposed to eat. I got down there, and the first thing he showed me was he had a diary. He had this book, and he wrote every little thing down that he ate throughout the day. And I was just like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, and he's so...
How old are you?
21. And he's so professional in the way he, you know, looks after his body and gets himself up for games. Like, he's 32 now, and he's, you know, he still does that, and he's playing local league back in Newcastle, you know what I mean? Like, I went and watched him play for that First Nations Goanna side. I went and watched him train on one of the days, and I got down there about 45, 50 minutes before the training session, and I'd rang him before, and he goes, yeah, I'm going to get there a little bit earlier. And I said, yeah, sweet, I'll meet you down there. And I got down there, and he was the only one there stretching, you know, rolling, loosening up his hips and doing things to his body to make sure that he's in the best possible shape to complete training and to play good footy on the weekend. And he's obviously reaping the rewards now. He's probably had one of the best seasons he's ever had last year.
Because you're talking about he could still play first grade.
I reckon he could 100%.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about him, like about as far as like, so what happened?
Yeah, I think he played NRL at the Panthers.
For how long?
He only played 3 games, and that was in 2011. I think it was at the stage where of his career that I think the Tier 2 contract, if you weren't in that top 25, you were on probably 25,000 or 24,000. To be living in Sydney on 24,000 is nothing. You know what I mean?
You can't.
25,000. So he'd always had an aspiration to play NRL as well. So as soon as he done that, he thought that was it. You know, I've done what I set out to do, and he just went and played got a job in the mines in Newcastle, played local league in Newcastle, and that's a fairly good comp in terms of toughness, in terms of money and stuff like that. That's probably the next best underneath New South Wales Cup. So he's been doing that for about ever since 2012. He went up there. So I just think he sort of got to a point where he had enough of, you know, struggling a little bit, and just wanted to, you know, start a family, look after his family, I think.
What are the chances of him being able to play now, do you think? Could somebody...
If you ask me, I think I would, if I was a...
What position does he play?
Fullback, centre, 5'8".
Big guy?
Big, way bigger than me, mate. Like, he's massive.
How big are we talking about? Like,
he'd be 90-something kilo and strong. Like, his work ethic and his training and stuff like that is one of the best I've ever seen.
Is there a chance of him doing it? Is there a chance for someone to be able to throw out a 1-year contract to him or something?
Oh, I think there's always a chance, but you know, he's 32. I'm not sure whether. If you ask me, if I was a recruitment manager at a footy club, I'd offer him a contract today. You know what I mean? So whether it happens or not, he's already said he's quite happy with where he is. If an opportunity comes up, he'll definitely have a look at it and make the best decision for him and his family. But he's quite happy and comfortable where he is at the moment.
Because I don't know, like I'm not like a massive football fan. I follow it because Alex coaches you guys, and now I know you and I know the boys from South, so I guess I follow Souths, you know. But that otherwise I don't. But for me to hear about him, and for me to hear, like he's kind of got like a cult following, you know, where and this you might not like this, so you probably will like it because of just the type of person you are. Obviously, you're very close with your brothers. But I hear this, I go like blah 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 Cody, and people go, oh, that's Ryan's brother, and that's how I knew about your brother at first, because somebody said, oh, Cody's Ryan's brother.
Yeah.
And I thought Ryan was playing, you know what I mean? And then we started talking about it, and they're like, no, he plays like in Newcastle, you know? And it's one of those like, you know, in the movies, like the story about the dude that he's playing somewhere else and the younger brother's playing, you know, and then they comes back and they have a fight in the grand final.
Nah.
But that's honestly how I'd heard about him. I heard like, I was talking to somebody and blah, 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 and they said that's Ryan Walker's brother.
Yeah.
And I thought he was playing first grade.
Yep.
You know, so that was funny to me. In terms then of the window, I have a question then for you. When we going back to a question about the window of opportunity. So is it fair for me to say that you were talented, but you probably weren't doing all the things correct, and your window stayed open until you were 26 for whatever reason, however it happened? But would you say your brother was equally as talented, if not more so? In different ways? I don't know.
Yeah, he was a very, very skinny kid growing up. He didn't make much rep sides and stuff like that. He hardly ever made any rep sides, so he probably had to work a little bit harder in terms of like putting weight on and stuff like that. And I remember when he finished playing, going to school here, he moved to Coffs Harbour, and he was playing local league in Coffs Harbour for a few years, and he lived with a couple of his mates from New Zealand that were you know, PTs and stuff like that, and sort of got him on the right track to eating healthy. And then he moved up to the sunny coast. I can't remember what year it was. It might have been 2009, 2010. And that's when he started, you know, putting on the weight, being a big boy, and started playing some good footy, and then went on to do a pre-season with the Manly Sea Eagles, because they were the affiliation back then, and then they got him across to Penrith, and that's where it all started. So yeah, he probably worked really hard to get where he was.
And even then, the window's still closed. He had a very strong work ethic. He obviously got picked, so he was good enough to play NRL. Yeah, because no one plays NRL without a base level of talent. Yeah, but even then, the window closed.
I think it closed because he got to where he wanted to get to.
Oh, so you think it was just he was happy with just having played the 3 games?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting as well.
But then I think when I started playing regular first grade, I think he sort of wanted to be back in that environment. So he started playing reserve grade for Newcastle in 2016, and you know, tried to make that pathway come back. So I still think if an NRL club, you know, offered him a contract, he'd definitely sit down and have a good think about it, and I think he wouldn't turn it down.
How hard is it, Cody, for like a player? Me and Alex were talking about this the other day. How hard is it? You're playing here, say, argument's sake, it's 2018. You're playing here. They walk in and say to you, you won't be re-signed 2019.
Yeah.
And or you already know you're not going to, not only do you know you're not going to play for this team in 2019, but you know you're going to go play for Bulldogs, or let alone you're going to go play for Townsville.
Yeah.
Townsville? What is it? North Queensland?
North Queensland.
Yeah.
North Queensland Cowboys. So, next year, you're not only going to leave Sydney, you're going to go to a one-team town, basically in another country almost, you know what I mean? How do you deal with it?
I'm pretty fortunate it has never happened to me.
But it has sort of with Melbourne in a way, like...
No, when I was in Melbourne, we were negotiating contracts, and I chose to come to Sydney because my partner and my kids were up here, so I chose to come up to Sydney. There was a contract in Melbourne when I was down there that I could have stayed.
Okay.
But
even
chose
that
not to.
transition, how do you balance that?
I think it was pretty easy for me. Like my partner and my kids were up here, so it was one of the easiest decisions to make.
But to go to Melbourne originally, what was that like?
Yeah, it was scary. It was really scary. Not being in Victoria ever, to going down there to live. It was definitely scary. But I've been in Gold Coast. I've lived in Brisbane. I've lived in Sydney. I've lived in Melbourne. I've been around a fair bit. So.
And what's that like?
Yeah, it's hard, but it gives you experience. You can live by yourself and live in different cities.
And in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time, how do you balance that you might have to move or whatever? Or it doesn't affect you? Or?
It doesn't really affect me. If it needs to be done, it needs to be done, really.
Okay.
I'm pretty good with that sort of stuff.
And what's it like balancing family and everything with what you do?
Yeah, it's long weeks. Like my missus just started full-time work, 6, 7 or 8 months ago. So it's very long hours, getting home, cooking dinner and stuff like that. We're not getting the kids after school and everything like that. It's definitely hard, but it's something that's got to be done. What
are you looking at to do like post your rugby league career? Like you've done some work with us on some of the TAFE programs, on the GAP program. You've worked with us as a mentor. We've travelled out into community with you, I believe, to Tablin. Did you come with us to Moree?
No. Missed out on that trip.
And
don't think we got an invite.
He's very, very touchy, mate. He's very, very touchy. He can go on any trip he wants, and he doesn't have to say anything to us. But if we go on any trip without him, he gets upset. He's very, very possessive. Very, very, very possessive. We are looking at going to up North Queensland at the end of the year, depending on how the diva behaves himself. Like we should bring him along, David. Like we don't want to get him angry at us. But you've done some real interesting stuff, and like you're very young as well, and you've done some pretty cool stuff already in terms of working with community. What kind of stuff are you looking at for post career?
Because I grew up in a small country town, and I had some of my best mates that were just as talented as me. Not go anywhere in life and not really do something with the talent that they have. I'd really like to become some sort of mentor to people from my community to make that transition a little bit easier on what they want to do, whether they want to go to uni, whether they want to play footy, whether they want to play netball, whatever it might be. Create that transition a little bit easier. Whether it be get in partnership with a school where 10 or 11, 12 kids from that community actually go together and they're like a family at that school, and they can bounce ideas off and make it actually feel like they're back home, if you know what I mean. Like one of the biggest things with Aboriginal kids when they move away, the first thing they suffer from is homesickness, you know what I mean? So if we got 10 to 12 kids from Casino, Ballina, Maclean, Lismore, or anywhere like that where they're all sort of together and they're actually one big family. They can go away together and help each other out with their homesickness and stuff like that. And I can provide some sort of support to those kids and the families, and really make that transition a little bit easier, because there's so much talent back home, and I can probably talk for every Aboriginal community within Australia. There's talent wherever you go.
Do you want to speak a little bit on that, Dave? That's probably more your area of expertise, setting up something like that, or the logistics of setting something up like that.
Yeah, I think the main thing, we were talking about strategy and all that sort of stuff. I think the challenge that I always find with the education system, especially with Aboriginal, and that's my specialty, that the content in school and stuff doesn't actually relate to real life scenarios. Where I've ran a school program and actually taught rugby league stats to kids, and they actually got the maths, as opposed to just teaching flat stuff on a whiteboard. When it's actually something that people are passionate about and they love, they actually relate more. So the
But
context,
in fairness, it's not even just Aboriginal.
No, that's just
any kid.
Yeah, I would have rather done
good
that.
learning.
Yeah.
It's just that whole concept of we have a structure that which I would call is oppressive. Like we have, that's why we're interested about strategy and leadership, because generally a teacher is seen as an oppressor because they're up there and they're the knowledge holder and they're forcing you to know stuff. How I think what you're after is how do we actually make an environment for Aboriginal kids where it's a family environment, not this I'm the big leader and you're going to learn this crap. That how do we actually learn as a family and grow as a family, which is. Do
you want to expand on the concept of oppressive learning or oppressive teaching, I should say, or both?
Well, my personal view. Well, I think we see it all the time. Is like even in management, So you've probably always had someone has that experience of that boss who was a bit of a dick, where the role of leader or the manager role meant to be a leadership role, but it actually is an oppressing role because they actually truly don't know how to lead. And really, in the art of teaching, I think, is facilitation. So especially in adult learning, you're in a classroom with 35 to 25 to 30 people who are bringing life skills into the room and wealth of experience. It's how do you actually get that knowledge from them and relate it back to the content, not here's the content, relate it to your life. I think that's what I mean by not being oppressive. So how do we actually teach content that we can bring out the best in an individual, not oppress that individual and then make them try and make it mean something in life.
You were saying, Cody, about if we go to community, like you were talking to me about going to Brewarrina. And first, let's go with Brewarrina. Why Brewarrina? Like, why that place in particular?
I just think it's a great opportunity for us to get out. Probably never been out there. I've never been out there.
Haven't seen the fish traps?
No, I haven't seen.
Can you speak on the fish traps? I mean, like, whoever's most qualified to speak on the fish traps? No, go. Because
actually, Bradley, so Pindari, we actually, we never seen it, so we just said, let's jump in the car and let's go have a look. So it was, the earliest dated man-made structure. But the messed up part of it is when we got there, we realised they blew up half of it and started damming it and put in a model that was American. So the yellow bellies actually swim upstream, but the dam they put in was designed for salmon, and salmon jump. Yellow belly don't. So it actually stopped the fish from moving upstream. So you have
I didn't know. I knew that Brewarrina was the oldest man-made structure and definitely the oldest man-made fish traps. I don't know how old they are. They're like 50,000 years old or whatever, but I didn't know that they'd remade them.
Oh no, they blew up part of it to dam it for the farming. We didn't know that until we went up there as well. So only half of the fish traps is still sort of.
But then they made a different set of fish traps.
They put in a dam that mimicked an American style fish trap, so that a dam that the fish could swim upstream.
Like salmon do.
But the fish of Brewarrina doesn't swim like salmon, so it was a counterproductive.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But that shows the importance of that the lack of sometimes Australian society and farming, that they're not listening to the traditional owners. Like
that have been doing it for however long.
Yeah, they've been there doing that for ages, and just have a listen, have a chat, and they probably could have came up with a more holistic solution.
But there is in Australian culture, and I'm sure it's not just Australian culture, but I think in Australian culture there is a massive loss of like that intergenerational equity, both in Aboriginal society and definitely from Aboriginal culture to, I don't know, non-Aboriginal culture, so to speak. Because like that, like to me, and I mean, I'm saying it from as, you know,
Yep.
totally as an outsider in both, because I didn't blow up a fish trap, but I'm just saying it from where you see it is like the people didn't even, they don't even know about it, and they don't even understand the fact that like the fish traps were there and the fish traps are here, and they existed for this long, not just because they were pretty. Yep. They existed for this long because they were working.
Yep.
You know, so I think, I don't know, that's a crazy little thing there.
Yeah, and it's linked to stories and tradition and the dreaming. So like it's actually more powerful than, hey, this is just for us to catch fish. And I think you know, Cody, like we've had you involved, and for the Indigenous camp you're involved in, where you started doing stuff. Like I think that challenge for us now, especially when we're looking at stuff in Brewarrina and as Aboriginal leaders, is how do we make our culture normal? Because every time we do, say, when we did the fire starting thing with the sticks, that's like an event. Where why don't we just know that now?
Yeah, I'm not.
But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
so like we like the normality of our culture. So it's just a normal thing. Where the Maoris, they can do the haka and stuff, and it's normal.
Yeah.
Where you know when you know you guys do the traditional war dance at the start of the Indigenous games, like that was like, oh wow.
Yeah.
But it's an event. It's a one-off.
Yeah.
Like how is that? How do we make that normal?
Yeah, I suppose just keep doing it.
Exactly.
Keep practicing it, and you know, the more we do it, the more it's going to become normal. I think.
Yep.
And that's practicing culture, practicing those sort of things.
Yep. Oh, definitely.
And then another thing you said to me was when I said about going to Torres Straits, you spoke on that as well. Do you want to elaborate on that?
I think
why you'd like to go to Torres Straits.
I think they'd teach me a little bit about, you know, a little bit about culture and a little bit about their, you know, they probably live a little bit different to what we do. They probably live a little bit more traditional than what I do. You know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait. It's going to teach me a whole lot about culture that probably I didn't know. You know what I mean?
Yep. So growing up, how was culture explained to you, or like did you get exposed to it?
Yeah, I was exposed to it a fair bit through my mum and dad. We used to go hunting a little bit, kangaroo shooting and stuff like that. So we were exposed to a lot of that, and we'd done a fair bit of Aboriginal dancing back home in in primary school and stuff. We had Aboriginal dance and dance group that we used to go around to different events and dance at. So we were exposed to. Yeah,
you shake your leg.
Haven't done it for a few years now. So we used to go around, over Lismore and stuff like that at different events, and get on stage and do the emu, kangaroo and stuff like that. It was quite fun.
How has being confident in your culture helped you?
Yeah, it's helped me massively. I can go back to my community and really, what's the word? Really be confident in explaining my story and where I've come from, and and telling the kids there that it's okay to dream and follow their dream.
That's awesome.
What challenges do you see as or both of you as in as far as being, whether you like it or not, Aboriginal community leaders?
Okay. This show's about you.
No, but both of you I'm interested in.
You go first.
See, the thing is, like, my family, we're Bundjalung. My family's from Lismore. My dad moved from the mission when he was, 12, 13, or even maybe a little bit older, and moved to Sydney. So I've only grown up with the urban Aboriginal feel, which is very different, because it's funny, because when I go back home to Lismore, I see a lot of the community members not wanting to engage in culture, where down here in the city it's just like, we want that shit. It's just like, how do we do that? So it's interesting that what I find is when I go home, like you can go to learn Bundjalung there, you can go do all that stuff, but a lot of the locals are actually not engaging it, and they dream of coming to the city. So we actually want to trade lives. So it's funny as a leader, how do we get this balance of both these lives? So I'm interested to see it from the flip side, because you've come from there and then come to the city and then trying to still connect with culture, but it's back there.
Well, I tend to go, whenever I go back, I try to take my little fella shooting or, turtle diving and stuff like that. So, to get him used to that sort of stuff, and that's normal, is what I want to do. And, coming from the city, we don't have turtles down here, you know what I mean? Like, we can't go out and shoot.
No, we had one. We caught one. Tell the story, David.
I was at that day when we was here.
Oh, yeah, remember we caught one and it got away from Isaiah.
Yeah.
We should have got you to grab it.
Hey. Come on, mate. Come on, buddy. We're going to leave this. We've got to get through one podcast so people don't make fun about that. That was very low.
No, it was really, it was great to take my little fella up there.
Cool. Do you want to just hit that button, Fab? Just with that, like as a I'm seen as an Aboriginal leader of education and stuff, but the biggest thing I struggle with is how do I actually teach my kids this stuff?
Yeah.
Like, like you're right, you can't just take the kids down the creek and show them how you catch turtle at Tablum. Like it's weird. How do we actually create that cultural experience in this environment so that our kids feel empowered? Because to me, that's what ultimately, like, we're not going to hand it down or recreate it. It's lost in another generation or
and
two generations.
that's a loss of intergenerational equity.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I'll say, like, I'm not Aboriginal. I'm like second generation Australian, so both my parents are South American, and that's something that's prevalent in all communities, and any of the stuff, like, obviously taking away specifics, but a lot of the stuff that people talk about, because I get asked the questions like, why do you do that? Why Aboriginals, Fab? And I'm like, I wasn't aware that, like, do you know what I mean? I'm not like, I'm going to pick up Cody, the Aboriginal. You know what I mean? Like, how? You know what I mean? I wasn't aware that I was doing that. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not going, I want to work with David because he's Aboriginal. Like, any more than I want to work with my business partner because he's Brazilian. Do you know what I mean? And I think that I see it from, I see, like, say for example, Vietnamese friends that I've had, or Lebanese friends that I've had, or other South Americans, and their parents come over and the parents can't speak English and the kids don't speak, let's for argument's sake say Spanish, and there's a massive gap of communication. Or even if they can both speak, it's like the kids speak like Tarzan and the parents speak like Tarzan respectively. So there's a massive loss of intergenerational equity. Yeah. There's and with that loss of intergenerational equity and culture is a massive loss of identity. And you can't communicate with your family properly. You can't communicate. You have no real sense of loss. You have a great sense of loss, and you don't even know that you have that sense of loss. Because that question gets asked to me, and I think, like, I'm an Australian, I'm a second generation Australian, whatever. Again, if whatever you want to label me, but I am. And I think, like, I never even understand how you can talk about, like, its Aboriginal history, like it's separate. And I think, like, you started it at 200 years ago. Like, I see it as like there's been a history, an Australian history for whatever, 60, we don't even know really, you know what I mean? It's not really accurate as to how long, the first people of Australia were here for. And I don't, I'm just going to answer that, because hopefully if anyone does watch a podcast that goes, asks me this, hopefully I've answered so I don't have to answer it about 50 times. Because remember, in the car, we're talking about, like, with the shirt and da-da-da-da-da, and I don't know what happened. We were driving in the car, I think something, and I didn't get to answer. I was going to say to you, the biggest questions that I get asked, questions like that is like, why do you work with Aboriginals? Why do you this? And I think, like, I don't work with Aboriginals. Like, I don't not work with Aboriginals. And there's, in my gym, I don't know what the figures are, but I would imagine that the vast percentage of people that train at my gym are probably white, Anglo-Australians.
Yeah.
I don't know because I didn't care, but and probably the Islander population is overrepresented. I don't know. But nobody ever asks me that. Like, you know what I mean? People don't ask me that either.
Yeah.
So, and another thing is I know people are going to ask this, and people are going to say this, and I feel it, but I'm going to say, when they say, you know, you take your kid shooting, the question's going to be, and I know this, and I'm going to see it on the YouTube comments, somebody's going to write it. So if you're going to write this, you think, shooting, why is that a part of the Aboriginal culture with you shooting the kangaroos?
It's a traditional, food that we used to eat back, that our ancestors used to eat. Obviously, it's a little bit easier shooting from a gun.
Yes. No, it's self-explanatory to me. I get it.
Aboriginal people are, very, very smart. And when a gun came out, they thought it was a lot easier to shoot a gun than it is to, hit it over the head. So,
but you understand what I'm saying, like, because
definitely,
it's the same as turtle diving. You'd rather wear goggles and
same as you'd rather drive or fly than walk.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, but do you get asked questions like that?
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's sort of like that culture can't be progressive as well. Like, and I did when I was at uni, I'd done a study on Aboriginal music, and there's no difference in the message from a traditional corroboree that was done, back 50, 60,000 years ago to, YRMC or any of the Baker Boy. They're rapping about contemporary issues and about surviving. That was no different to a traditional corroboree where they were talking about, well, this is my land, this is how we survive on this land. So why can't we use tools that are modern? Like, it's part of the growth of culture. But again, I think it's weird in Australia that we have to. There's a vision of us with a spear, a lap with our leg, and that's all we're allowed to be as Aboriginal people.
And it's like if you play like the saxophone, you would still edit that music or whatever it is that you do to it. You know what I mean? It's not like you can only play the saxophone and only play it this way. Like for what I'm trying to say is, for example, like, that's okay for you to play the saxophone and use it in all these different, ways. But like the didgeridoo, for example, is like, no, you got to, and you can only play the didgeridoo kind of thing. Like it's weird.
Yeah, it's limiting our ability to grow our culture. That's what ultimately it does. It's sort of like, well, the methodology and there's still stuff after you kill the animal. There's still a whole process after that. That's probably the easiest bit.
Yeah.
Like, how do you then break up the carcass, cook it?
Oh, mate.
Yeah. Same with the turtles.
Yeah.
I think I can speak on the turtles because
He thinks he's
Didn't you grab one?
I caught about 40 turtles a day, and I think I'm a legend in Tablin. but one of the things that I fully was able to appreciate and see, and it was only there, and that's why I'm even more interested in spending more time and doing it, was I think there's the connection, like you just being at Tablin when we're in that creek kind of thing. It's I don't know. You would have to be totally detached from reality, or totally. I don't know how, because I'm from the city, but there's a special stillness and a special relationship you have with the land out there, and seeing it in your family, for instance, and I don't know, your brothers or not, how in touch they are. In comparison to the older gentleman that was with us, and I forgot his name.
Starbuck.
Yeah, well, they obviously they're on a different level, obviously, and I'll get you to talk on that in a second. But the act of taking your shoes off, walking through, getting stung by nettles, because I almost cried.
Honestly, he sat there for that long.
But the act of doing all of that, catching them, chasing the kangaroo, all the stuff, and I think we did it for like nothing. But the whole act of that, had we have caught the turtles, we would have had to, eat them and cook them and
cut the head off, gut it, everything like that.
And you get an appreciation, just on a really superficial level, is like where your food comes from.
If you don't catch it, like back in the day, if you don't catch something, you don't eat. You know what I mean? Like if you don't.
So can you speak on that a little bit? Can you speak on your uncle that we went and saw and all of that?
Yeah, he always teases me, I think, on Facebook whenever he goes hunting. He probably goes hunting 3 or 4 times a week and
I just love that he's on Facebook as well.
He puts
so you shouldn't be on Facebook.
No. Not if you're out catching turtle.
Yeah.
He puts photos up of porcupines and goannas and turtles and fish and kangaroos and stuff. And I think most of his food is caught. You know what I mean?
Yep. So he still has that connection.
Yeah. He goes out a fair bit. Like I get tagged all the time on Facebook, and I'm in Sydney and I'm thinking,
how much do you enjoy it? Because you were like really like you didn't want to come home kind of thing.
I want to honestly stay up there. It's a thing where it's hard to explain. I think I'll drive home, and the last bit where you get into the casino, I know I'm 5 minutes from casino, and I'll have a big smile on my face because I'm coming home. You know what I mean? I'll always have that, and it's very, very hard to explain. It's hard to explain the type of feeling you have. You have this sense of joy, and you're coming back home, and always love. Like I hate the start of the drive. It's about 8 hours from here, and then you sort of hit Grafton, and you're on the home stretch. You got an hour to go, and then you get on this certain road going past Leeville School, and you're 5 minutes from casino, and you just sort of go. You sort of rise up in your chair a little bit, and you have a sense of pride that you're coming back home. And I love being back home. It's an amazing place.
And that connection though, like someone like your uncle, he would have his connection with land is like I was watching him just little things, man. Like he was running around in the nettle.
Did you see him like when we were walking down to the river, and we were all like watching out like on the rocks and that, walking through the water, and Uncle's just going like walking real fast, and then we get on the sand and that, and like we'll all be like.
Man, his uncle, not Cody. Cody was worse than me. Let's be real. But he was a real letdown. But he was like, I was like, we're taking a genuine Aboriginal. And then I looked over and I was like, no. You're a real letdown, mate. But no, his uncle. But these are like little physical things. But I do think they transcend the physical. Like we were. All that stuff that you were saying, like he was talking to us, to all of us, right? All of us, me, every single one of us that was there. And we all went and stood in the water. Do you remember that? Because it was hot.
Yeah.
And he was just standing on these rocks, man. And the rocks were so hot, man. Yeah. So hot. We all went, like we stood there for a sec. If for anyone, like, when you go to the beach on those like 40-something degree days sand. And the sand is real, real hot. And you're like, it was hotter than that because it was rock. And he was just standing talking to us going blah, 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 blah. And then he looked at us, we'd all like lined up like that in the water. And he goes, why is all standing in the water for? Man, it's hot. We're standing, it's hot.
And you did the same.
Yeah, I was in the water
worse,
too.
He was worse.
He jumped in the water first, that's it.
No, he was worse. Like, that's But just that, like that to me is someone that spends a lot of time out there, like a lot of time.
When we left, I think my brother and my 2 uncles, they spent another 3 hours out, on the land. They took a frying pan, like a little stove top and that, and they actually cooked the feed out there and actually stayed out there for most of the day. And I think they come up with 2 kangaroos and 5 or 6 turtles, so would have been great to stay out there for the whole day. But
I would have loved it. I would have loved it.
I was showing the boys the photos when we got back to the airport that they had caught, and it was
so because I missed this trip. So they caught those after you guys left. So let me get, you had yourself, you had Rob, like, some of the best athletes in Australia at the moment.
Rob's useless, dude. He was useless. He was the worst. He wasn't. People tease me about the turtle, right? And he didn't even there was no attempt. He didn't even get to hold one, right? And
because you threw it away.
No, but still, this is what happened. I was holding the turtle, and Rob was. He was on the other side, like about maybe 20 meters away. And he's like, "Oh, Fab, hold the turtle." And just walking like, through the river like that until and I can't. Have you ever tried to hold one of those mammoth things?
Mammoth?
I was wrestling it. I was basically fighting it.
No, I would expect something different from Rob because he fights barefoot and kicks people in the head. Surely he has harder feet.
Nah, he did nothing.
No, I think, in Aboriginal culture, we're very patient. We're very patient people, and we probably only went out there for about an hour and a half, and we were sort of running around trying to get a kangaroo or get a goanna or get a turtle. So, as I said, if we would have stayed out there for a little bit longer, we would have seen the full effects of how to catch a kangaroo, get more turtles.
So that patience, how much of that patience do you use in your current life? Like, you have that experience of, going out, takes a whole day to get something. Yeah. That serenity and that patience, how much do you think that you've used that in your current life? Until now, you probably never really thought about it.
Yeah. Oh, not really, but I think I'm fairly patient in, getting to my goal. I've waited a fair while to get there. So it takes patience, it takes resilience and stuff like that.
You outweighted a lot of other people. Like, a lot of people would have probably hit that peak age that we're talking about and would have just said, hey, I'm done. Yeah. But your patience stayed.
I think it's a lot around, teaching my young kids that, if I want to teach them to chase their dream and, aspire to something and they give up, like, why? How can I tell them to do that if I didn't do the same with my goal and my aspirations when I was a young kid? So they really drove me to keep going.
But I think a lot of that patience would also be lost real quick in the city.
Yeah,
like you can't. You know what I mean? You can't have. You almost can't have it in the city.
It's hard. It's definitely hard.
And I think you're balancing that instant gratification as well that you have, particularly in the city, because when you go out to the country and you're out there and you're doing that, to me it's like you almost jumped in like I don't know, some sort of parallel universe, because you get there and like time's different, everything's different, and when we were out there, it's like, I can't explain it enough. Even Rob mentioned we were only there for hours. We were only there for a few hours, but when we got to Tablin and we were doing the river stuff, it was just like quiet.
So peaceful, eh?
Yeah. And you can't rush it. Like, the turtles are going to come out when they decide.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're not going to come out when we decide that they should come out. So
and that's how I was explaining. Like, we're very patient. Like, when you make a didgeridoo, it takes months. When you make certain things for Aboriginal, or when someone goes out hunting, they go out for the day, you know what I mean? They don't sort of go out for an hour and go, oh, didn't catch anything, we'll go back, you know what I mean? So we're very patient people, and it probably showed in that day that if we would have stayed 3 or 4 hours longer, we would have got a good feed, and the boys would have got to taste kangaroo and stuff like that. So.
So what happens now for you going back to football? What happens now? Like, how far from the season are we? What's the season? I know it's like probably everyone asks you, but what's the season looking like for you? How do you feel physically?
Yeah, I feel probably in the best shape of my life. I think everyone says that every year around this time. We've had a very long, hard pre-season, but it's been thoroughly enjoyable. I got first trial this weekend against the Dragons, and then 2 weeks before our first game, and that goes until the end of September or the start of September, and then it's finals. So got a big long season ahead.
How much do you enjoy pre-season?
Look, it's really, really hard. It's probably something that's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and they don't get easy as you get older. But the amount of work you do with the teammates beside you, it makes it all worthwhile in the end when you're pulling that jumper for the first time.
One of the things I noticed with you, and I've worked with heaps of athletes as well, is you don't really get that out of shape. How important is it to be coming into pre-season, coming into it in shape? I'm sure you're not in the best of shape coming into it, but you're not. I mean, you don't walk around at 120 kilos or something.
I've probably learned a lot, through my early years playing rugby league, that when I didn't have the work ethic, when I didn't have the discipline, when I didn't have the right mindset, going into pre-season and stuff like that, it hurt. it really hurt. It wasn't until the end of 2013 where I signed with the Melbourne Storm. I've probably done a little bit of training, but not much, and that was, that was ridiculous. The training sessions down there. So from that moment on, I just thought I'm just going to keep training throughout the pre-season and be in the best possible shape I can to have a big pre-season.
Because one of the things, like, correct me if I'm wrong with this, but I see this with other people, I see this with myself. It's so easy that if you take 2 weeks off, and some people might not realise this, like if you just live like just normal, your life's the same everything, but if you're training, I don't know, you're doing 10 sessions a week, let's say. If you're doing 10 sessions a week, you can pretty much eat not whatever you like, but if you eat the right foods that make you able to recover and you feel good and all of that, and you can do the sessions, then if you have even just more of the right foods, you're still going to be okay. Yeah. But if you stop those 10 sessions and you just eat the same foods, your weight goes straight up. Yeah. And then if you, on top of that, because now you've got a little bit more time, you might sit and watch TV a little bit more and have a couple of packet of chips. And that's like a tame, I'm talking about a tame off season, not getting into, waking up in Mexico, you went to sleep in Sydney, you woke up in Mexico. I'm talking about a very tame off season. You will just doing that. You'll come out of shape. Yeah, you'll come in out of shape.
Yeah, definitely.
How out of shape do you see people come in nowadays, or is it a lot better than before?
It's definitely a lot better. Like, the pre-season gets harder, as I said before, harder every year. You do more work every year. So, if you don't come in fit, that's when injuries start happening. That's when your body starts breaking down, because if you're overweight, your back starts going. Then if your back starts going, your hemis start going, you know what I mean? So you're leaving yourself open to injuries and stuff like that, and potentially could lose your position in the team. So I think a lot of people realise that now, that you need to do something in the off-season, you need to look after your body and come back in the best possible shape. Obviously don't come back super fit and be the fittest you've ever been, but come back in reasonable shape that you can handle the training.
How hard is it for you to, like, how competitive is life in a first grade football team against guys that are trying to get your position, young guys coming up, older, more experienced guys coming through? Like, it's so transient as well in a rugby league team, in a rugby league competition, or any high level competition. How full on is that?
Yeah, it's pretty full on. Like, those young kids coming through, they want to be where you are, you know what I mean? So I'm guessing they'll do anything to get there. They'll train harder than ever. They'll eat more, eat more healthier, do more training and stuff like that to actually get to the position that you're in. So that gives us a little bit of motivation to be able to do that sort of thing, to do stuff in the off season and prepare yourself for the biggest pre-season of your life, because every year it gets harder and harder, as I keep saying, and they get, they're hard.
What makes them hard? What are some of the stuff you're doing in pre-season that makes it that hard?
Probably just back-to-back sessions. Like Monday, Tuesdays are massive. Like,
what do you do?
Mondays we'll do weights in the morning, or we might do field in the morning, but field will be massive. Like we'll do 10k or 11k maybe.
Like running?
Running, footy, defence, stuff like that. And then we'll do weights in the arvo, and then the Tuesdays probably probably our 3-day sessions our 3-session days where we'll do field in the morning. There'll be another big session.
Like what will happen on that day?
Conditioning. A lot of the stuff this year has been around like playing with the footy. So we've had the footy in our hands from probably the first week of pre-season, which hardly ever happens in rugby league. So we've been doing a lot of our conditioning work with the footy in our hands and doing more football side of things. So Tuesdays will be very hard. What we might be doing contact, we might be doing MAS running, where you just run up and down the field, and then we'll do weights after that, and then we'll go and do wrestle with Alex, and they're pretty big sessions. So
it's a big day.
Yeah, big day. So on Tuesday Arvos, you're actually looking forward to that down day on the Thursday. On the Wednesday, sorry. And then on the Wednesday we'll have, just like a recovery day, we'll go in and stretch and stuff like that, and might have a massage in the Arvo, and that sort of gets you prepared for the Thursday, Friday.
Okay. And Thursday, Friday?
Thursday is much the same as a Monday, Tuesday. Every second week we'll do wrestle on the Thursday, and then on the Friday is more about kick, catch, and a little bit of skill.
All right. Anything on that day?
We spoke to your head coach yesterday. Have you felt the difference in training since a new coach has come in, and how does that affect your preparation going into pre-season? Like, you were used to one routine and now you got a new leader. How does that change your mental preparation, and has there been a change?
No, it hasn't necessarily been a change. He's obviously bringing in his new ideas, and from day one, like, we've had the footy in our hands. It's not common with having a footy, even seeing the footy in November, but we've done a lot more footy this pre-season, and it's changed a little bit of game plan around how we want to play this year, and I think it plays into my natural game a little bit more, and getting myself, our fullback, and Reno, whether it's AJ or GI, getting us the ball in our hands a little bit more than we're probably used to. So that's something I'm looking forward to as well.
No, I just found it interesting, and it's very interesting to have like back to back, like your head coach, and then having you here was a pivotal role, having you guys like back to back and just getting the different perspectives on you. But I mean, from today, what I took the most from was like just who you are as a person. I think is it's very interesting. I look forward to being able to do some more of this, the travel and stuff, because we had a good time. What was that like from your perspective, going away with the GAP program, with the Gracie program, to Tablin on that particular trip?
Yeah, obviously I felt a real sense of pride showing you as my country, and taking you out with my uncles and that. But even on the was it the Saturday, we went to Grafton. Even going to Grafton, seeing those Acmina kids, like.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Showing them that there's a way out through education, and if you change your mindset and stuff like that.
Do you want to talk about what that is? Because a lot of our people won't know what that was when we went to...
I went to Acmina.
Yeah, so what's Acmina?
A youth... Is it a youth...
it's a
youth facility,
youth
correctional facility. I can't remember the statistics, but there's high statistics in Aboriginal.
It's like 90%.
Yeah, 90% Aboriginal Aboriginal people in the centre, and we just went there to say hello and sort of offer them, support and stuff like that. And there's a way out of the lifestyle they're living through education and hard work.
I think was it in Grafton or in Casino? I'm going to tell this story, and you correct me. You just tell me which place this was in. I think it was in Grafton. Somebody came up and asked you if you're such and such as uncle or cousin, and you said, no, I'm not. And then you were going backwards and forwards, like the kid. It was like this little kid. And he just kept going backwards and forwards, and it was obvious Cody wasn't related to him. He was, no, my uncle, da-da-da. And then the kid goes, well, I don't care anyways, because GI's me cousin. and he left Cody just standing there. And Cody's ego, you know how it is. Like, he couldn't handle it.
Classic stitch up.
No, but do you remember that? Me and Eli were laughing about it the other
I think
day.
it might have been in Grafton, maybe. It would have been in Grafton.
Yeah, I think it was there. The kid's like, I don't care, G.I.'s my cousin. he fully didn't care. So you're saying with the trip when we were like just being out there, and with the trip itself, like because you were actually what a lot of people don't know is you were playing football and you were mentoring on the program, but you were also a student on the program.
Yeah.
So what was that experience like? Because you were actually enrolled in the Gracie program and you completed your Cert 4 whilst you were playing first grade rugby league, whilst you had a family. What was that experience like?
Yeah, it's definitely hard, but with help from yourself and Effie, I got through it and came out whenever I can and participated in the classes and stuff like that. So it was an experience, but it was a great experience to get some qualifications under my belt to work on myself after footy and give myself a plan for life after footy.
It's awesome. Anything else, Dave? Yeah. No, I just want to thank you very, very much, and for all the continuing support with the GAP program, all the help you, all the stuff you do, like even the real small stuff, like when you come out today. And again, I can't stress enough like how much of an impact that has on the rest of the class, and also in future programs that we're going to do, and hopefully we will be able to go out to Torres Straits at the end of the year. So thank you very much.
No
thank you guys for listening.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.